Hi, my name is Carol Dyson, and I wish to thank the Symposium team at the College of Environment and Design at the University of Georgia for sponsoring this innovative conference and for inviting me to participate. I serve as a Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer for the Illinois SHPO Office in the Department of Natural Resources. I have also enjoyed teaching a course on evaluating the recent past for the School of the Art Institute of Chicago's Historic Preservation Program. In the mid-20th century, countless owners of banks, shops, restaurants, theaters, and other commercial businesses built modern new buildings, such as the Edens Theater in Northbrook, Illinois. Or they were inspired to update and modernize their existing building, as we see here with this lovely ground floor shopfront of black structural glass, stainless steel, and aluminum. Newer 20th century businesses proliferated, including car dealerships, gas stations, motels, dry cleaners, fast food restaurants, and drive-up businesses. We also saw the introduction of shopping plazas and shopping centers. Often these commercial buildings were the first architectural expression of modernism to reach a community, and they fully utilized a variety of modern materials and assemblies in their quest for an up-to-date image. I'm now going to discuss some of these assemblies and materials. Many mid-century design reflected a new, more informal relationship with the consumer. Retail goods were no longer hidden away behind counters, rather displayed in well-lit stores, and in financial institutions, even bankers were now exposed to customer view in lobbies. To complement this new relationship to the consumer, by the beginning of the 1940s, commercial design evolved beyond the 1930s streamlined moderne into a new design aesthetic. During the Second World War, Pencil Points magazine produced an influential commercial design competition, Storefronts of Tomorrow. A proposed drugstore design is shown here. These 1943 commercial building designs heralded a trend towards a more three-dimensional commercial building facade. The net result of these promotions and changing business practices, combined with advances in new materials, was striking. The exciting new designs in the mid-20th century first occurred at the street level of commercial buildings. They changed to something I like to refer to as the deconstruction of the front facade. Foremost among these new innovations was the open front. Rather than opaquely backed display windows, the now well-lit store or theater lobby itself became the display. As with this advertisement, how to make the sidewalk part of your store. When people can see in, more come in, more business. With steel lintels spanning across an entire storefront, the shopfront first floor could be visually open. Perfectly clear plate glass could be produced and transported in sheets as large as 12 by 25 feet to allow visual connection with the building interiors. The term open front or visual front were utilized by the glass and storefront manufacturing companies to describe this new modern look. These large plate glass windows were used in a variety of commercial structures, including theaters, gas stations, shops, and restaurants. This photo of a Steak and Shake restaurant shows its broad expanse of glazing, and indeed, one of the mottos of Steak and Shake is, "In sight, it must be right." Many of the most evocative designs were seen in retail because of their business emphasis on up-to-date design and style. Open front glass might be lightly framed or butt glazed to create an open look. Sometimes glazing was inframed by broadly curved aluminum trim to picture frame the store interior, as seen here, or here. In this dry cleaner's example, it's fluted aluminum that wraps the establishment's open front lobby. Angles were another common design element, often combined with the open front. Glass front walls were angled, either pitched inward from top to bottom, as here, partially to reduce glare but also to look dynamic, or angled back on a horizontal plane towards the entrance to try to lure window shoppers to step inside. Even this rustic stone veneer wing wall angles outward as it juts through the deep overhanging canopy. Signage and even roof lines could be angled, including this Phillips 66 space-age era gas station. The idea of luring customers by capturing their attention with an outdoor lobby was not new. In the 1920s, commercial designers experimented with stepped and zigzagged, open, symmetrical, arcaded entrances, as seen here. After World War II, some of the same plan motifs for outdoor lobbies carried through, but now in a truly asymmetrical manner, as here in Chicago. Freestanding table display cases appeared outside within asymmetrical exterior lobbies, as shown here in 1949, and here in Chicago. Cantilevered display cases also appeared inside and out, some only slightly cantilevered, others, like this, more dramatically so. Here you see an example in Bloomington, Illinois. The display case in front could have housed a mannequin. Projected awnings appeared to horizontally slice into these three-dimensional commercial facades. Heavier steel awnings gave way to lighter-weight aluminum ones. Above these new, elegantly designed shop fronts, however, changing downtown economics created many vacant or underutilized upper floors. Spaces that had housed apartments now were relegated to storage. The upper windows could now be covered as part of a modernization campaign with glass, aluminum, or porcelain enamel panels, as you see here. And here. When daylight was still desirable on upper floors, open-weave metal, usually lightweight aluminum, plastic, or screen block, were used. Installing these grills or panels over the upper floors created an instant style update, or made a backdrop for giant signage, well suited to an automobile age. Some of these recladdings embody a dramatic design and are representative of an important time in commercial history. When a mid-century facade is complete with its contemporary storefront below, it definitely deserves serious evaluation by preservationists. Modern commercial buildings were highly dependent on signage. Often graphic overscale lettering comprised an important part of the design. However, due to changes in ownership, changing aesthetics, or simply cheaper alternatives, most of these distinctive graphic messages have been removed. Thankfully, some communities have recognized recent past signs with surveys, historic sign ordinances, or designation. As the 1950s and 60s moved forward, more evidence of modernism appeared in commercial buildings. Some buildings were clad in steel or aluminum curtain walls with porcelain enamel panels, or glass spandrel panels. Within, functional international spaces were easily adaptable to different uses. Mid-century buildings often utilize progressive new structural forms. On Main Street, some of these buildings might be simple masonry or curtain wall structures, but dramatically topped with daring roof forms such as folded plate, undulating thin-shell concrete, as in this drive-up bank in Oklahoma, sadly recently demolished, dramatic pylons, soaring roof lines, and expressive structural or sculptural massing all contributed to a style defined in 1985 by Chester Leibs in his groundbreaking book, Main Street to Miracle Mile, as exaggerated modern. Theaters, restaurants, banks, bowling alleys, and roadside architecture were among the more common representatives of this style. Now that we've explored how they were used, let's quickly review some of the more widely used materials in mid-century commercial buildings. As we have seen, plate glass was an integral part of these designs and formed the polished, perfectly clear, transparent covering for the open front. Tempered or heat-strengthened glass was used for clear doors, elegantly attached with minimal hardware. Before the war, the white metals of aluminum and stainless steel were the most common framing, and it continues even today. But after the war, anodized aluminum and newer champagne and gold colors joined the earlier clear coat or mill-finished aluminum. And here you see the 1958 Citizens State Bank in Oklahoma City which is a gold anodized geodesic dome roof. Porcelain enamel steel panels first became common on commercial buildings before the war. Its use continued throughout the 1940s and 50s, but it was now more often seen with rougher textures. Not all commercial building materials were new in the mid-century. Older building materials were retooled to create newer, modern effects. Brick, often in blonde colors, was stacked with continuous vertical joints rather than a running bond. In other buildings, brick was laid in more decorative, textural patterns. Terracotta was also utilized, but usually not to imitate stone as it was in earlier decades. Rather, terracotta is now clearly expressing modernism. Structural expressionism, new formalism, and brutalism all utilized both smooth and rough-textured concrete. Precast columns in the style of Minoru Yamasaki or Edward Durrell Stone were also utilized in Main Street buildings from the 1960s to 1980s. They were most common in banks or offices. Here is an Illinois example by bank designer John Van Scheltema. Other natural materials such as brick, stone, and wood materials were combined on commercial structures. These were sometimes described as California style or suburban modern at the time. Tile, previously found in storefront bulkheads, now added color, texture, and pattern to accent facades. Smaller mosaic tile and colorful patterns were used frequently in the 1940s through 60s. Stone was installed in smooth and elegant polished panels, and also in a more rustic manner with stone veneer. And in case you were wondering, this is the back wall of a stone veneer company in Springfield, Illinois. Store expert Mike Jackson refers to it as the Rosetta Stone of stone veneers. Panelized imitation stone, concrete, or tile veneer also became common. Laminated panels of imitation materials on wood substrates also showed up on commercial buildings. Unfortunately, these emblematic mid-century commercial buildings are often endangered. Mid-century motels are a prime example. Even with the extra cachet of being located along the well-touristed Route 66, Springfield, Illinois lost 5 Route 66 era motels in 5 years. So what is the solution? One approach is to work with, not against, the original design and materials. And we are about to see an excellent Main Street facade redesign by Anna Margaret Barris of the Illinois SPO office. Here is the before, and here is the after. And happily, there is increasing awareness and numbers of advocacy groups regarding these buildings. The efforts to save the St. Louis Del Taco and former gas station is an exciting example of a preservation win. We have resources for you on our website at the Illinois SPO. We have a page on mid-century commercial design with articles and design examples. Because our website location keeps changing, I've placed a link at www.tinyurl.com/mid-century-il-shpo. You'll also find there a Storefronts component guide that discusses these materials and elements in more detail than I've had time to do today. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend the Association for Preservation Technologies Building Technology Heritage Library. It's a free online digital library with more than 8,000 construction, material, and product advertising publications from the 1800s to 1968. I should also mention the proceedings from the Mid-Century Modern Structures, Material, and Preservation Symposium held in St. Louis in 2015. My discussion today draws heavily from my longer paper given there. Finally, to conclude, during the mid-20th century, unparalleled and dramatic changes in the design of commercial buildings transpired across the United States. Often strikingly modern, these buildings celebrated up-to-date looks, commercial efficiency, and modern materials. They were worthy of an optimistic post-war age. Unfortunately, too few of these buildings survive intact, and many are not fully appreciated by their current owners or their communities. I hope that education, recognition, and preservation can save some of the best and the brightest examples of them. Thank you.